In the snow-covered town of Novaya Ladaga, we were allowed a single day of rest, scavenging for food wherever we could find it. We begged from local residents, sought handouts from a bread factory, and survived on scraps. The following day we set off through dense forests, searching for the army headquarters. Along the way, some comrades lagged behind, others succumbed to frostbite. When we finally reached the headquarters, we were assigned to various military units. The luckiest among us was sent to Signal Corps regiments, operating radios until the end of the war. Most of them survived. The unluckiest was sent to rifle divisions. "Oh, you're radio operators?" they said. "Here, take these rifles. See that hill over there? The Germans are there. Your mission is to take it." And so the newly minted radio operators fell one by one on nameless hills. My fate was different. I was assigned to a heavy artillery unit. It took us a week to locate it, wandering through villages on the front lines, twice crossing the frozen Volkhov River with its massive power station. Food was scarce. We ate wherever we could find. Once at the Volkhov power station, we managed to grab some leftovers from a cafeteria preparing for evacuation. The theft of supplies was so blatant that the cafeteria manager couldn't refuse our modest request for food. Another time, on the outskirts of the village Voibakalo, soon to be wiped off the map, a kind-hearted woman brought us leftovers, bits of pastries and other treats. She had a high-ranking officer, some sergeant major, staying with her, and these were the leftovers of his breakfast. At night we slept wherever we could, in the empty waiting room at Volkhov 2 station, which was still intact, or in abandoned buildings. Once at the station we encountered armed civilians. They turned out to be partisans preparing for a mission behind the enemy lines. In the town of Volkhov, the war's presence was palpable. One evening, as we passed by a school converted into a hospital, we saw two elderly hospital attendants in the corner of the garden. They were digging a grave, preparing to bury fallen soldiers. Carefully, they stripped the dead of their uniforms. State property had to be preserved as per regulations. One of the corpses belonged to a young man who must have been strikingly handsome in life. His body, though lifeless, still bore the marks of youth and strength. An eagle tattoo adorned his chest, with the words "Love Nature" inked on his shoulder and "Still Hungry" on the other. Those were the scouts from a naval brigade, known for their short, brutal life expectancy. The bodies were rolled into a grave and covered with frozen earth. We exchanged glances, grim and silent, and moved on. Later, that summer, I saw burial teams covering corpses with lime to prevent disease, but those were the fortunate few who could be retrieved from the battlefield. Most soldiers were left to decay where they fell, claimed by the elements and time. Eventually, after endless wandering and risking to be captured by advancing Germans, we reached the station known as Murmansk Gates. There, young soldiers in patched sheepskin coats informed us that our regiment was likely somewhere near Tikhvin, unreachable for now. They advised us to join their unit instead. Their commander, a jovial captain named Sidash, welcomed us warmly. Sidash, a short, stocky man with a bald head and a booming laugh, was fresh out of the military academy. Despite his coarse jokes and endless chain of rolled cigarettes, he was a capable officer. Under his leadership, the regiment performed admirably. In August, during the battle near Kirishi, when the infantry either fled or surrendered, raising white underwear as makeshift flags, Sidash's regiment held off the German advance for several days. For this, the regiment earned the title of Guards. Sidash rose to command an artillery division but never made general. Rumors circulated about a scandal involving food supplies. He was gravely wounded near Budapest in 1945, A cruel twist of fate for such a bold leader. For me, artillery proved to be a fortunate assignment. Infantry soldiers had an average survival time of 1 week during active combat. Artillerymen, especially those firing from rear positions, had a better chance, sometimes lasting months. Those directly operating the guns often survived the war. The young recruits, myself included, were placed in fire control units, tasked with observing enemy positions, correcting artillery fire, and maintaining communications. My specific role was in radio operations. We didn't charge into battle, but crawled behind the infantry, staying just close enough to direct fire. Our losses were far fewer, and the regiment I joined retained much of its original composition throughout the war. This was in stark contrast to the infantry divisions, which cycled through replacement so frequently that only their unit numbers remained constant. At the time, I understood little of this. Upon arrival, I was given a meager ration of 300 grams of bread and watery soup, along with a pair of mismatched second-hand felt boots to replace my worn-out shoes. That same day, news arrived that Tikhvin had fallen, disrupting supply lines. Rations were cut further, and hunger became a daily struggle. The conditions were harsh. Standing guard in minus 30 degrees Celsius for hours each night, digging frozen ground, hauling logs and shells, each crate weighing 46 kilograms, all without any prior acclimatization. My body, already weakened by malnutrition, seemed on the verge of collapse. The first time I came under fire, I didn't immediately understand the danger. The explosions, the screams, the blood staining the snow, it all felt surreal. I stood there, frozen, until someone knocked me down, cursing me for exposing myself. Despite everything, I found my calling. I began tending to the wounded, improvising bandages and dressing injuries. Though untrained, I had a knack for it, earned the respect of even the professional medics. By late November, our regiment moved into action. It was then that I truly grasped the horrors of war, endless casualties, sleepless nights, and gnawing hunger. One particularly cold night, unable to sleep, I sat in a snow-covered trench, weeping from exhaustion. Something shifted in me that night. By dawn, I crawled out of the trench, scavenged through abandoned German dugouts, and found frozen potatoes. Boiling them over a makeshift fire, I filled my stomach for the first time in days, and for the first time, I felt a spark of hope.